Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of the Spyderco Des Horn. That's Des, D-E-S, not J-E-S, D as in Delta. That's something's a little confusing because there's also a Des Horn. But anyways, this is a knife that Spyderco has recently discontinued, but it's still pretty easy to find out there in the world. There's still a fair amount of stock around. I want to thank my buddy Peter for sending this guy along, something I wouldn't have had a chance to play with otherwise. It is, in terms of size comparison, here it is versus your Spyderco PM2, versus your Ontario Rat 2, versus your Spyderco Delica. Here we go, and versus your Spyderco Sleesh Bowie. Why not, right? There you go, Sleesh. So, let's go on ahead and talk about this knife in terms of the usual, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, in terms of your good, there is definitely some good here. First and foremost, this is a pretty lightweight knife. On the whole, it's 1.96 ounces. That's very light, even compared to something like your Spyderco Delica. It's lighter than the Delica, and that really does take some work. So that's impressive, and, you know, that's because of the G10 construction and the fact that there's just not a lot of steel in this. So the lightweightness is very good. This disappears in the pocket in a pretty effective way, although we'll get back to that. It does have a Wharncliffe blade, and I'm a big fan of a Wharncliffe blade, especially one with a little bit of point to it. So I do like this blade shape a lot, and it is a very thin blade as well. I mean, you can see here that the blade itself, in terms of thickness, is actually only slightly thicker than the Delica at its thickest point. So this is going to make a pretty good slicer as far as a Wharncliffe blade goes, and the steel is S30V, which there's nothing to complain about. I really do like the maker's mark on this. This is just immensely classy here. It's got, coupled with the rest of the design, this has a real Saratra, fly me to the moon sort of vibe to it. I'm digging that, I'll be honest with you. So, you know, the maker's mark brings me some joy. It does have a line lock, and it's a nice one. It doesn't take a lot of force, makes it easy, good lockup, solid lockup. And then finally, the very best thing about this knife is that styling. It's got a very nice Art Deco sort of look. You've got the three lines that kind of blend into these three lines, this little cutoff. I mean, this is a knife that almost feels like it's from a bygone era, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful knife. Looking at this guy in a photograph, it's just like, oh yeah, well done. And some of the knife, like the official photographs that Spyderco did make this look so damn good. So that's nice, and it's unique. There is no other knife being made out there that looks like your Spyderco Des Horn. And so, yeah, that's, well, at least that I'm aware of. There you go. So that's your good. It's lightweight, got a nice Wharncliffe blade. It's got a very, very nice maker's mark on there. The liner lock is good, and the styling is really unique. Let's go into the bad. So on the bad side, unfortunately, the blade being as thin as it is, with a tip this thin, is gonna be fragile, especially in S30V. So this is a gentleman's knife only, and if you do anything approximating hard use with this, this is probably gonna break right off. So that's unpleasant. I'm guessing here, but oh, that's pretty tiny. So that's something to keep in mind. This is right side only carry. There is not and it's right side tip down only carry. There's not drilling for it to be workable on the left side. So lefties, sorry about that. There is no access to the Spidey hole on the clip side. That's not universally possible. The Sleesh Bowie is another one in that realm. But for those of you who like the Spidey flick with the finger on the backside there, you're out of luck here. The ergonomics are just not great on this. They're not terrible either, but even in my small hands, this just doesn't feel great in the hand. It's not really it's meant to look good more than it's meant to cut. So that's something to keep in mind. And then finally, I'm not a big fan of the black pivot screw here. I feel like it would be much more interesting given that this hardware is silver, if they'd done that silver as well. But, you know, that's a design choice, but I'm not a big fan of it. So there's your bad. The fragile blade and tip is going to be ugly. No left side carry, no clip side Spidey hole access, and the ergonomics are just not stellar. Let's go on ahead and move on to your ugly. Three big ugly things here. First off, these blade decorations. This little bit of Art Deco striping is very, very, very sharp. I'm going to see if you can see down there. Probably not. But either way, this, especially these corners right here, is unpleasantly, like, I wonder whether this could shave you sharp. And that sucks, especially given that it's used with a tip-down only clip, because that means that this is going to hang in your pocket like this. And that means that anything else in your pocket is constantly going to be rubbing up against this very sharp scalloping here, and is going to literally shave parts off of the leather of your wallet or something like that. That's really ugly. If this were tip up, then it would be much easier because it's just against the cloth of your pocket. But it's just not stellar in that way at all. This will just eat anything in your pocket. And then the really, really ugly part of this is the use of the G10 for the scales here. This is a knife that is just gorgeous from afar, but when you pick it up, you're just like, oh, well, that's pretty uninspired. The G10 here is really uninspired. This is not meant to be a hard-use knife, but even still, if you're using G10, you need to use it in this kind of a thickness. And that makes this knife, on the whole, a lot thicker than it needs to be. And so this, as a very svelte, liner lock along the lines of the Gale Bradley Air, with this same design, would be much more compelling. But when you throw in the chubby, kind of plasticky, thick G10 scales, it completely kills the stylish look it has going on from afar and turns into kind of a plasticky look that's just not thrilling me. So this is in a lot of ways a wasted potential. Had they done this in a nice thin titanium, oh man, that'd be great. But as it is, unfortunately, once you pick it up and you see the plasticky G10, it's just like, oh, never mind. I thought that was really cool looking. So there's your ugly. The blade decorations are really sharp. Coupled with that tip-down only clip, it's going to eat whatever's in your pocket. And the G10 scales just completely spoil the aesthetics of this knife as far as I'm concerned. They could have done much, much better with the G10 here. So let's talk about final conclusions. My final conclusion is that this knife is a perfect example of great on paper, crappy on the pocket. I had wanted to try one of these for years because it checks a lot of boxes for me. It's a small, lightweight Wharncliffe blade that's designed with kind of a gentlemanly thing in mind. And then I actually got to hold one and realized, oh, wait a second, no, never mind. Because unfortunately, there's a whole lot of unfortunate here. And that's kind of the prevailing sensation for me with this guy is, oh, that's unfortunate. Because it completely overwhelms the good. There's so much wonderful style here, but then it's made of plastic and really thick. Okay. There's a lot of potential, but they just whiffed it here. So as a functional cutting tool, I can't recommend this guy. And even in terms of the styling, they just whiffed some of the execution. And so as a result, this is just a swing and a miss by Spyderco. I want to love this knife a lot, but unfortunately it's just a perfect storm. Oh, that's unfortunate. And the end result is something that's just not so compelling. Hey, Peter, I do want to thank you for sending it along nonetheless. You got the Des Horn out of my blood, and I appreciate it very much. And I hope the rest of you all had yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, and will have yourselves. Long day. Have yourselves a good one. Bye now.